much, yes, they make that much more per student, but they lose some students who couldn't afford it. So that made them stick to an equilibrium of pricing. They didn't like that. They didn't like doing what every other business has to do, which is charge what your customers and clients can afford. So what they did was they went to the federal government, and the federal government said, this looks like a crisis waiting to happen. We'll come in and help this. We're going to set a mandatory maximum that you can't charge more than, which, by the way, that maximum was way higher than what the equilibrium for pricing was in almost every area of the country. So they were basically telling the colleges, you can now charge this much more. And just because we're setting a maximum for you, we're going to make sure that they can pay it, because we're going to introduce grants and student loan backing, and that way we will basically prop up the demand and the ability to pay. The next thing they did was they introduced, and they're still doing this today, an increasing number of occupational licensing laws and other minimal educational requirement laws that are not needed by the actual industries, but the cronies who already have vested businesses in those industries say, put these protections in so that we have fewer competitors. So they put that in, which artificially increases the demand for higher education. So many of these things that people are going to school for, braiding hair and doing makeup and aesthetic work and so many other things, food service in some states, in Florida, in order to be I don't know how it is here, but in Florida, in order to be able to be an interior designer, you need to go to school for 6 years. These kinds of laws are put in place to create artificial demand for higher education that would not have been there if they hadn't put those in. So that, coupled with the maximums, which were way higher than the market demand, coupled with the fact that they were backing the student loan debt, caused artificial increases in pricing and artificial increases in the number of people who needed education. When that finally fell apart in the late 2000s, and these lenders started saying, we're not going to give out loans anymore, half these students, or 40% of these students, are dropping out and going bankrupt, and we're not getting our money. Then the federal government nationalized it, so that now, if you're one of that 40% that drops out, you still got to pay it, even if you go bankrupt, because now it's a federal debt. You can't get out of federal debts, you silly. So now, here's what's happened. The cost has gone up artificially, the demand has gone up artificially, there is no price equilibrium, there is no ability to simply opt out and get into an apprenticeship program or something like that. At every single step, they have taken steps that would make sure that the cost would go up, that the access would go down, and that you would be stuck with the bill at the end of it with interest, even if you had to pay the government back. That is how they have destroyed the American dream. That, coupled with just bad monetary policy, which makes the price of everything go up, that coupled with the bad housing policy, simply put, the federal government injected itself into things that had no business being involved in. The cronies came in for their seat at the federal trough, and you got stuck with the bill for enriching them. We get government out of it, we put the power back in your hands, we get rid of all those silly, ridiculous regulatory burdens that are doing nothing to protect anyone and are just driving up costs across the board. Costs go down to the equilibrium, access goes up, and you're able to get the kind of education that you need. Depending on what you've, and I don't want to pry into your business, but depending on what kind of education you got, it may not have even been required. It could have just been done through an apprenticeship in that type of industry. So, no, too late for you. But here's the thing. We can get rid of those things. Now, with student debt, existing student debt, because we can fix the housing problem, we can fix the problem with just the general cost of living.